Okay folks, welcome back to the Random Dad YouTube channel. Got an extra special treat video for you today. We have to put the summer tires back on the Random Mom's car. So we're gonna take a couple minutes right now. I'm gonna give it a quick wash because it's super dirty, and then we'll get into it. As you can see behind me, it looks like a bomb went off in the shop. There's stuff everywhere. So I'm gonna need to take a couple minutes and just clean up a bit. The reason it's such a hot mess in here is because we sold the camper this week. I've got some extra special footage coming from the camp project. The time came for us to finally blow the roof off the camp, and we got in a little deeper than I originally thought we were going to there. So we ended up deciding to sell the camper. For those of you in the future, this is happening during the COVID pandemic and people are going buck wild spending money on campers. We put that thing on Craigslist, it sold in 18 hours, but everything that was in the camper is now just chucked in the shop here. The only reason I'm sharing that with you is because I'm a little behind on camp footage, but we've made a bunch of progress there. So hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of that. It's gonna be pretty interesting. So with that said, let's get going on the summer tire switchover. I didn't show you me washing this car because if you want to watch somebody wash a car on YouTube, it's not going to be me. You got to head over to Ammo NYC on YouTube. The dude is awesome. I'll drop a link in the description to his channel, but he is super cool. I really love watching his channel. Don't critique my wash job real well here. I did not detail the Random Mom's car just now. I just wanted to take most of the junk and dirt off of it so I don't get completely disgusting while I'm changing the tires here. I bought a set of winter wheels and tires off of Tire Rack when we bought this car. I kind of feel like this is a little bit Random Dad 101, kind of like I was saying when I did the Tundra oil change. It's just a cool thing, gets me out in the garage. I can change my tires, snow tires, whenever I feel like it. If I want to rotate tires, I can do that. That also allows me to run my summer tires a little deeper in the fall so that I don't end up driving up and down the interstate on a 70-degree sunny day with these snow tires on, which are soft and grippy. So next thing we need to do is head out to the Sugar House storage shed, Random Dad headquarters, to grab the summer tires, and we'll get this party started. This is what we got for hardware today. I bought this 3.5 ton floor jack at Costco many years ago. It was cheap, it works awesome. I've got this Dewalt Electric Impact. Yeah, air might be cooler, but it is what it is. It works great for this job. And then I have the summer lug nuts that go with the summer wheels, which are just the stock wheels that came with this thing. Like I said, I got this set up on Tire Rack many years ago, not many. I keep forgetting to mention, we're working on a 2016 Acura RDX here. But where we live, we get a lot of snow. You got to run snow tires, even though this thing's all-wheel drive. So I bought this setup. These are 17s, so a little bit less expensive rubber on these. And these Blizzaks have been awesome. One thing I was going to mention is these and the Generals that I have that I'm running for summer tires now are both directional tires, so you can't really rotate them super well. So I just go front to back every year. So let's jack this thing up and get rolling here. So there are a couple different places you can jack this car. Right here on the body seam, there are a couple mount points, or weight distribution, I guess, points. See that little tab right there? That allows you to pick the car up by the body. This thing is a unibody. And then really, see this, again, it's a unibody, but this kind of looks like a frame rail. There are a couple of different spots on this that you can pick this car up. Right here
where those two bolts are next to the exhaust is where I pick it up sometimes if I need to get inside a little bit. But for the tires, it's super easy to just grab it out here on the edge. All right, you guys know that I'm a huge mechanics gloves fan. I usually run the Impact 2 gloves, but I got some of these this week to work on the camp because it was just too warm for the Impact 2s. They're some sort of speed, fast fit. There's no Velcro around the wrist, and I really like them. They're a little bit lighter. Anyway, we got this jacked up. I got my trusty extension cord here. I've got a 19 millimeter impact socket deep, and let's whip one of these off. I don't have the wheels chalked or anything. You know, do what you gotta do, make your own decisions, but this thing's all-wheel drive, it's in park. I have the e-brake set. I've done this a bunch of times. I'm feeling pretty good about it. I'm not using a jack stand because I'm just gonna pop this thing off. I'm not gonna be under the car. So here we go. Okay, with the wheel off, I just want to give things a little once over here. This rotor's actually starting to look a little gnarly. Like I said, this thing's a 2016, so it's got about 50,000 miles on it. It actually looks okay to me. The rubbers on the slides for the caliper look all right. Caliper does not look super clean. This fall I will put I'll put a coat of fluid film on this thing, and I'm probably going to have to do some brake work on it at some point. But I don't see any major failures in here. I'm gonna have to change the oil also. The oil filter's right here on these RDXs, which is kind of handy. I wish that the oil life had timed out to when I had to do this tire so I didn't have to take it off twice, but I'm not gonna change the oil prematurely just because I'm lazy. So here we go, let's get the summer wheel back on. Okay, so I lied to you. These new summer tires are not directional. So I'm rotating these the way you would normally rotate tires. So the fronts cross up and go to the back one season, and then they come forward, straight forward for the next rotation. So this tire was on the right rear last summer. I'm putting it on the right front this summer. You want to make sure it's nice and seated against the hub there. Got my lug nuts that are for these wheels. I like to start them on by hand, so I lessen the risk of cross-threading, because the last thing I want to do is make more work for myself here. Is the lens really dirty, or is it just the backlighting? That's way better, huh? What an idiot. Such a YouTube rookie YouTuber. All those YouTubers out there like,
bro, you gotta have the lens clean. We're talking YouTube 101.
Okay, all the lug nuts are started. The wheel, I don't know if you've noticed, had kind of shucked off the hub a little bit. So I'm gonna use my foot here and just kind of, it seats nicely with the center cap. And then I'll just put a couple of turns on here. So a lot of you are gonna say,
dude, what about torquing the lug nuts, right? Like, use your torque wrench and read your owner's manual.
So I've had this car long enough, and I've had this impact long enough that I don't need a torque wrench or a torque stick. This impact won't actually over tighten these lug nuts. Like if I have a car that has, and the lug nuts are really frozen onto it, this impact will not break them free. And so I know it won't over tighten these lug nuts because of the experience that I've had. If you have not had that same experience, please use a torque wrench or get a torque stick for your lug wrench or your impact or whatever. But like I said, I know
I've used this before, I've done this before, it's good to go, trust me. So I use the typical star pattern to tighten this thing to make sure everything's even. You probably know this, but in case you don't, I'm gonna show you. The star pattern, what I just mentioned, is the first thing you want to do is basically hand tighten all these to make sure your wheel is snugged up against the hub, seated on the center, everything is nice and flat. You can look in here. Let's see if I can get some light. You can look in here to make sure that it's seated flat up against your brake rotor or your hub. Once those are tight though, you want to tighten these in a star pattern so that you don't, if you go all the way around just sequentially, you don't get an even torque on these. And so what that means is just like a star. So this one first, then this one, then this one, then this one, then this one. So that's the star pattern. Okay, giving this one a quick inspection. Just gave it a once over. Exhaust is starting to look a little crumbly on this baby. But this is what I noticed. Look at this brake disc backing plate. Looks pretty good, looks pretty good, looks pretty good. Not so good right here. And actually it looks a lot more bent in real life than it does on the camera here. I don't want this thing. Yeah, and actually you can see in there, see way in there where it's been rubbing? That's gonna squeal and make noise and not be great. So I'm gonna try to just give that, I mean, really, these are, believe it or not, just a little push on that. Backed it out quite a bit. I might, yeah, I'm gonna grab just a little set of channel locks and kind of roll that and try to straighten it out here, and then we'll put the wheel back on. So I know that kind of seems silly, and the one thing that bums me out is those channel locks, man. Took a little bit of the finish off that, so it's probably gonna rust, but the rotor had already scraped in there, so not too worried about it. But other than that, everything looks decent. I will probably pop these well, you know, when I put the winter tires back on, I'll fluid film everything under here. So let's get the summer tire on. Quick PSA on lug nuts. My parents were actually cruising up here last weekend, and they were headed up the interstate, and they pulled over to help a guy because he had just done exactly what I'm doing right now. No idea what his process was, but one of his wheels had flown by him on the interstate, and he had to pull over, and when he pulled over, his car fell over onto the hub. So I can't tell you enough how much you want to check and double check and triple check that your lug nuts are tight. I always take a spirited loop around the neighborhood afterwards, after I'm done, to make sure that if a wheel's gonna fly off, it flies off in my neighborhood at 30 miles an hour and not at 80 on the interstate. Not that I support speeding, breaking the speed limit. So there you go. Another random dad PSA on changing tires is, it might seem really cool and it might feel fun to go all NASCAR on your own car and kind of keep the impact spinning, right? You know, you watch those guys on NASCAR and they just jam the socket onto the lug nut. Like, that sounds real cool, but I've tried that before on my own vehicles, and I've blown the paint and the clear coat off of the wheel, like this little recessed portion here where the lug nut goes. So take your time, get your socket on the lug nut nice and square and flush, and then use the dang impact wrench. Don't pretend don't think for, that you're on, rest in peace, Dale Earnhardt's pit crew or something like that. Take your time, just like everything. Take your time, do it right, and you won't break stuff. Okay, last step is to check the tire pressure in these tires that we just put on. Another random dad hot tip. I got one of these inflators a couple years ago that has the built-in tire pressure. I almost only use this for tires, but it has the built-in pressure gauge, which is awesome. I've had a couple of digital pressure gauges that were separate, and you're sitting with your air chuck, checking pressure. This thing has the little clip on one end, so you snap it on your valve stem till you're right where you want to be. So this is a Cobalt version. I got it at Lowe's. Maybe I'll put a link in the description, I don't know. But go to Lowe's or Amazon or anywhere on earth that has any mechanics crap, and they probably have these. I've been really happy with it. So let's get the compressor fired up, and we'll put some air in these tires, and we'll call it a day. If you're looking for your tire pressure, you can look in the book, in the manual, but I think every car has to have their tire information here. And so right here, you got your spare, nobody cares. Fronts, 35, rears, 33. So we're gonna set the fronts at 35 and the rears at 33 and call it a day. Another quick note. If you do any work in the garage, get yourself a cheap compressor and a hose reel. It's like one of the most handy things ever. I think I said this when I was working on the D140. But having compressed air at your fingertips is super handy for a bunch of different things. This little blower here, I use it to blow out the air box of the anything, I guess, if I'm doing an air filter. I actually use this to clean the interior of my cars. All those little cracks, you just take this thing and blow all the dust out of it before you Swiffer it or whatever you're going to do to it. Even just blowing up an inner tube for floating in the water, having a cheap compressor is super handy. And it doesn't take much to have a hose reel, so you can just wheel the thing out to wherever you need it and your compressor stays still. So, public service announcement from the Random Dad. Got enough air going here that we can start putting air in these tires. So 35 in the front, 33 in the back. So here we go. We're sitting at 30 pounds. I just pulled the trigger. I don't know, 32, 33. We're shooting for 35 cold. There we go, 35. We're in business. Another cool thing about this truck is you can let air out with it too. You just push this little button if you go over where you're headed. So I'm trying for 35.
Okay, folks, that's the end of the 2016 Acura RDX tire switchover Random Dad special. I got a bunch of cleaning up to do. I like to wash, really scrub the wheels and tires before I put them back in the shed so they, just stay kind of nice. I'm gonna zip this thing around the block and make sure the wheels don't fly off and clean up the shop. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, follow me over on Instagram. I'm doing some more frequent updates on the camp project on Instagram because the video editing is getting a little bit behind. But thanks for watching, and see you next time on The Random Dad.
This is just a little bonus content for what I do with my nuts off season. So I have a peanut butter jar here. The winter tires came with their own lug nuts. And so in the off season, I put all the lug nuts into this peanut butter jar. And then I take some WD-40 and I load those babies up with WD-40. By the way, these Sure Shot containers are awesome. No aerosol. Fill them up with whatever you want to spray. Put some air pressure in it. Off you go. I use a bunch of WD-40 for a bazillion different purposes. Shout out WD-40. Maybe someday they'll sponsor my videos. But anyway, I just give a little shot of WD-40 in that peanut butter jar. I put the lid on. And I give them a little shake. They come out nice and shiny, and there's no rust on them, and everything's good. So goodbye. Okay, folks, the bonus content just keeps rolling. So I washed up these wheels, and I always check the valve stems for some reason. I don't know, something I was taught a long time ago. And check this out. See if I can get you nice and close. Listen. Hear it? This cap is the only thing keeping air in this valve stem. So I gotta figure out if it's the core. If it's the core, we're in business. If it's not, we're in trouble. So let's pop that core out and see what happens. Okay, I had to go to the hardware store and get a new valve stem tool. This is like vegetable peelers in the kitchen. No matter how many of these you have, you're never gonna be able to find it when you actually need it. So let's get back to work here. I'm hoping just there's something goofy with the core and I don't have to replace the whole valve stem. Oh man, it's loose. It was that easy. Look at that. Tightened up that core. And we're in business. Wow. Nothing goes that easy for me. I did buy a couple extra cores. I'll probably never need them, but I got a new core remover tool and some cores for a couple bucks at the local Ace. So there's my bonus content. We fixed the valve stem core leak for real this time. Goodbye.